How many reptiles in the Legend of Zelda series are actually in real life? I'm talking about snakes. I'm talking about turtles, lizards. Are any of them real? Do they have the same coloring, habits, and habitats as they do in real life? Well, today I share my wife and I's research that took literally weeks to answer these questions and many, many more for all of you. But I'm going to warn you right now, what we found and what we had to research, well, it's not what we were expecting. Nailed it. Every time we go over a wannabe reptile, we will add them to the whiteboard under real or not real. This should make for an incredible visual at the very end, and you can see just how many reptiles are actually real in the Legend of Zelda series. And not only that, we will list out every single game that we reviewed in this video. And with that out of the way, on to our first animal. One of the most memorable enemies from my childhood that I can remember is the Dinosaurs. These are the stronger variants of the Lizardfolk. And you fight two of these dudes while trying to bring Ganondorf some coffee in Ocarina of Time. He did not appreciate the coffee, by the way. He actually started hurling balls of light at me. It was all very rude. When I first saw these guys, I actually was surprised by the name. I just thought they were some elite Lizardfolk. But actually, upon inspection now, some 30 years later or whatever, it's actually modeled more after a dinosaur, so they get the name Dinosaurs. And as one of our awesome commenters pointed out astutely in our canine video, Phos tends to be something that is, well, for skeleton hybrid creature thingies that walk on two legs and have a sword. The first thing we noticed straight away when looking at this guy was the flaps or the spikes on top of the head of the Dinosaurs. And it takes us straight to this cool lizard, the green iguana. Green iguanas are native to South America and Mexico, but are actually invasive in parts of the Caribbean and Florida. Although they eat mostly plants, they actually have incredibly sharp teeth and claws. And if you threaten them at all, they will use those, so I do not recommend it. Side by side, these dudes basically are identical. I mean, they look the same. The spikes are where they're supposed to be, the fins are supposed to be where they're supposed to be. These dudes actually look very similar. And so, the first one on the list, the Dinosaurs, is 100% a real reptile. Moving on to Death Mountain in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, we have the fireproof lizard. If you were lucky enough to sneak up on these guys and pick them up, they actually can be used for a fire-resistant potion or elixir, giving you some fire resistance as you navigate the horrible death landscape of Death Mountain. It might be really good to have some fire resistance in the place called Death Mountain. The fireproof lizard to us looks the most like a regal horned lizard. These guys have the same kind of crown of spikes here, and the colors are also similar as well. The regal horned lizard can be found in Southwest America and in Mexico, so it fits the description of Death Mountain perfectly. I mean, it is really hot down there, and I won't go there. I will literally set on fire. But there's a really notable feature about this guy. It's, well, it's flat. I mean, it looks like a pancake lizard. Give me some syrup and I'm ready to eat. Ugh. But I wouldn't want to do that at all because the regal horned lizard has a horrifying defense mechanism. You see, the regal horned lizard, if threatened, shoots blood out of its eyes. I'm not kidding. It literally does that. It will shoot blood out of its eyes as a defense mechanism. This defense mechanism that the regal horned lizard has, scientists believe, quote, it makes it too gross to eat. Yeah, I would say so. I would not want to eat anything with blood coming out of its eyes like that. Pretty gross. Besides for the flat body, we believe that the regal horned lizard, you know, even though looking like a pancake, actually matches the fireproof lizard quite well. So we're actually saying that the fireproof lizard is 100% a real reptile. When you think gecko, you probably think of this guy right up here. I mean, he is a gecko trying to sell you car insurance. Not a sponsor. So I'm sure you probably all know what a gecko is after seeing this commercial for Geico insurance about 1 billion times. But Nintendo would tell you wrong. Yes, Nintendo would tell you that the gecko looks quite different. Nintendo would tell you the gecko looks like this. I don't know what Nintendo was up with this one, man. Like, okay. You know, it's funny, I just beat Majora's Mask, like, for the first time in, God, 20 years, and fought one of these things, and I was just thinking the whole time, like, this thing is weird. It jumps on a turtle and spins around, and you gotta hit it with as a Deku shrub with the flowers. It's just very strange. I really have no idea what Nintendo was thinking about with this one, calling that a gecko. And I'm not kidding you, go look it up. It's actually the name of the enemy is gecko. But if you asked me, I would say this is a frog. Right out of the gate. It is kind of weird though, because it does have a dorsal fin or dorsal ridge, which some lizards actually do have, some reptiles, like the iguana. But clearly they're trying to go for frog here, and well, there's a couple of features frogs have that this gecko thing does have. For one, frogs don't have teeth, or razor sharp teeth at that. But if we had to match it with a frog, we would say probably the strawberry poison dart frog, which is a pretty awesome name. And it matches really well with the color of the gecko here. But beyond that, this does not look like a lizard. It looks like an amphibian, which amphibians are not lizards. Which, even if we wanted to try to make the gecko in Zelda real, we couldn't say it's a real reptile. So it's going on the not real side. Jumping back to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, we have the high-tail lizard. And this guy looks very similar to a fireproof lizard, except that its color looks a little bit different here. You can find these guys in more temperate regions of Hyrule and less of the Death Mountain, southwestern United States kind. When you do find these guys, they love to bask in the sun or stay on a rock or tree and stay in sunlight, which is really cool that Nintendo decided to put this little tiny detail into a video game. You see, lizards and reptiles are cold-blooded, meaning that they're unable to maintain their body temperature. Unlike us humans, we actually are able to maintain our body temperature and heat ourselves up or cool ourselves down. If you sweat, you're cooling yourself down. If you're really, really cold, you shiver to try to warm yourself up. And cold-blooded animals, like the lizard or the reptile, are unable to do this. So for them to stay warm, they actually have to stay out in the sun. They actually have to get sunlight. And so if they're going to warm themselves up, they typically are going to be on rocks or trees in the sun, which is just really cool detail that Nintendo put in. I really was kind of fascinated that they actually did that. The high-tailed lizard looks most like the coastal horned lizard, particularly the female version of this lizard. They usually are brown, but can commonly be found in red or yellow too. And these guys are super common throughout parts of California. So if you awesome people in California are out there, maybe go check out these lizards because they look very similar to the lizards, the hightail lizards in Legend of Zelda. What's also interesting about the coastal horned lizard is that it appears to be rough and spiky, but actually it's surprisingly smooth skinned, which matches really, really well with the hightail lizard in Breath of the Wild here. Oh, and I should probably mention that they too, they also bleed out of their eyes. Yeah. So we are saying 100% these guys are indeed a real reptile. Next up, we're talking about a fan favorite of, well, probably everybody. If you've ever played a Legend of Zelda game, you've probably encountered these lizards at some point. I'm talking about Dodongos. These reptilian monsters are found in Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and I think there are some other Zelda games that they appear in, at least in some form or another. They're normally found in mountainous areas or caves or like a volcanic place like Death Mountain. I realize now that in this video I've front-loaded everything that's from Death Mountain. Not sure if that's a sign of anything about this video. But you actually fight a gigantic version of the Dodongo in Ocarina of Time as the second boss in the second dungeon. And to beat him up, you gotta feed it bombs. That's just how it is. I don't know about you, but when I go hunt lizards, I too feed them bombs. Particularly firecrackers, not actual bombs, because, well, that's bad. That's right, you have to throw bombs in their mouth and they blow up in their stomach, giving them incredibly bad heartburn. And I'm sure all of you have had heartburn at some point in your life. It just makes you want to die. But did you know or ever see that the Dodongos in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, that they only have 2 legs? Yeah, it's really, really weird. I've never seen a reptile with only 2 legs before. Normally it's either 4 or it's 0, not 2. That's not a thing. I've never seen a reptile with just 2 legs. The first thing that we tried to research was dinosaurs because, I mean, we really couldn't find anything in our world today that matched the Dodongo. And well, the dinosaurs that we found, well, they all had 4 legs, or at least arms as well as 2 legs. So the best we could find are some lizards that run on 2 legs, but still have arms. Like the Basking lizard here. They're pretty cute and cool. Hopefully they don't turn you into stone. But as far as matching the Dodongo to any sort of reptile, we just couldn't. There really is not a reptile that matches the Dodongo, sadly. I am so excited for the next one. I mean, Dodongos are so cool, so obviously the next one has to be a really cool rep. What the heck is this? Well, this here is a Dodongo snake. Yeah, you heard me right. Dodongo snake. So remember what I said about the whole 2 legs thing? That you can really only have 4 or none? Well, Nintendo went with none here. This thing has no eyes, it has no scales, and it kind of slithers around when you encounter them. And you also have to throw bombs in its mouth in order to kill it. But, oddly enough, we were able to map this to a reptile. I know, you get 2 legs, it's hard to map you to a reptile, but you have none, it's easier for us. Here is the Brahmini blind snake. Yes, it's a blind snake that does not have any eyes, and it burrows into the ground. Similar to like a worm does. And these are produced by parthenogenesis. Yeah, I'm gonna put that definition down there. That one passed my brain. Parthenogenesis is a form of asexual reproduction where an embryo develops from an egg without the need for fertilization by a sperm. That's a fancy way of saying that this organism does not need a partner. Well, we've learned together today, friends. This one's really hard for us because technically the shape is really wrong. And the Dodongo here has lips, like big lips, and well, the snake doesn't have lips at all. And the size is way different too. Like the Dodongo snake is gigantic compared to the Brahminy blind snake. Therefore, we decided that this is not a real reptile. The hardy lizard is next on our list, and this dude can be found resting on palm trees in Garuda Desert. Or it can be relaxing on the shores of Nakuda. Boy, do I envy this thing. And what's interesting about this, a little bit tangent from my script, is that the hardy lizard actually has the same kind of coloring as the hardy bass in the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which you can look forward to possibly some research about fish in the future. Because I just happen to know that fun fact. Just happen to know it. This lizard looks very, very similar to the fireproof and hightail lizard, except that it is blue. And well, we need to map a reptile to him, and that was really, really hard. You see, there is actually not a lot of blue lizards running around, and on top of that, we couldn't find a blue lizard with a crown of spikes like our spiky hardy friend here. The closest thing that we could come to is the blue anole, and the blue anole is really cool. It lives in like a rainforest, but it doesn't live in a desert. And actually the blue anole is really, really small comparatively to the hardy lizard. So unfortunately, we can't say the hardy lizard is actually a real reptile. Let me ask you this. What immediately comes to mind when I say the words sticky lizard? Well, if you thought about anything other than this guy right here, I like you. We can be friends. This here is the sticky lizard, which can be found on walls of caves throughout Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. You may have noticed it has a very oddly boomerang shaped like head, and you might be wondering, surely there's nothing that could possibly match this lizard. I mean, the head is absolutely insane for a lizard. And I'm only saying this because that's what I thought as well. But get ready to be shocked. This here is a Diplodocus. And this, pay attention, is where science gets incredibly cool. The Diplodocus is incredibly old. So old, in fact, that the Diplodocus is thought to be a precursor to the newt and the salamander. And what's even crazier is that the boomerang head that you see, yeah, that's entirely its skull. It's not fins, it's not, skin or ears, it's actually its skull. It is thought that the Diplodocus lived from the late Carboniferous, say that 10 times fast, and the late Permian of North America and Africa. And what's even cooler is the Diplodocus is actually seen in another game, one that many of you probably have actually played. That game being Ark. If you go and play Ark, they actually have the Diplodocus in that game. And it actually looks pretty similar to the sticky lizard. I actually like Ark's art style a little bit more than the sticky lizard just because it looks more prehistoric, although the sticky lizard's pretty cute. But we have a big problem here. You see, remember what I said about the Diplodocus being a precursor to the newt or salamander? Well, the newt and salamander, although many of you may think it is, it's not a lizard. Those are not reptiles. Newts and salamanders are amphibians, which means that the Diplodocus is an amphibian as well. Or at least it's thought to have been. So unfortunately, although it matches the sticky lizard perfect, although it is so incredibly cool, we can't actually say that it's a real reptile. A real amphibian? Yeah, it's a real amphibian all day long. But a real reptile? No, unfortunately. But hey, maybe at some point I will do a big Animals of Breath of the Wild, Animals of Tears of the Kingdom compilation video. And there I think I will make sure to include this guy because he is just so cool. Okay, this next part is going to be an absolute doozy. Maybe grab a snack here, sit down, get a nice cold sody pop, because we are about to go through all of the Lizardfolk in Zelda. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's a lot. So I hope you're ready, and let's jump in. Our first Lizardfolk is probably one that many of you are familiar with. It's the Lizardfolk from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. As I said previously in this video, that the Dinosaurs is kind of like this gigantic, bigger form of the Lizardfolk, and here's the lesser form of that. But is there anything like these guys that are in our world? Well, there is the green anole. The green anole can be found in southeastern portions of the United States, and even on some islands in the Caribbean. Fun fact, the green anole, the males actually have this really cool delap underneath their chin, which they extend out when they are wanting to show off for the ladies. That's right. The green anole will actually use this red delap to do push-ups. You know, to show their dominance. Yes. I too, when I want to show dominance, I get down on the ground and I do push-ups. All of one. If we look at the head, we can actually see it's quite similar to the Lizardfolk here, and the green matches really well with the skin color of the Lizardfolk. It is a little bit lighter on the green and all, but I think it's a pretty good match, and it's super cool to see that the riches on the Lizardfolk is also on the back of the green anole. So I have to say, this one's pretty easy. We're gonna have to say the Lizardfolk in Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask is 100% a real reptile. Next up, we have the Lizardfolk from Ocarina of Time 2. Twilight Princess. Yeah, these dudes are way different than the N64 era, which is why we broke all the Lizardfolk up to begin with. What is crazy about the Twilight Princess version of the Lizardfolk? They have a freaking battle axe wrapped around their tail. Like, how does that even work? They thought about how hard it was fighting Link in Ocarina of Time and was like, oh man, what can we do to, you know, fight him? What can we do better next time to win? Oh, I got it. We'll attach a battle axe to our tail and swing that around. We'll fight him on two fronts. Okay, but admittedly, it does look really cool. And the design is actually pretty sick too. But you already know what I'm going to say. It's very hard to map this to something. The head is very snake-like, maybe even dinosaur-like. And yeah, there's reptiles that look like both. But the spots on the back, it makes it very hard to come up with something in the real world that we can find for this. So we came up with this guy here, the blue-tailed monitor lizard. And the blue-tailed monitor lizard is actually really cool, and they're fantastic hunters, climbers, and swimmers. Oh, and they're incredibly venomous like snakes. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, yes, in fact, their tails are actually blue on the end of them. Pretty neat, but their tails are blue and they don't have axe heads attached to them. Okay, we wouldn't say it's not real because of that, but it is not a one-for-one match, and it doesn't match up very well. So, unfortunately, we're gonna have to say that the Lizardfolk and Twilight Princess, it's not real. Speaking of blue on lizards, next up we have Skyward Sword's Lizardfolk. Okay, maybe he's not exactly blue, but he definitely has bluish green going on. And what's funny is they traded the axe head for maces. They're revolting. Like, what are we doing here, Nintendo? Like, really? Nothing is menacing about a lizard that has a big ball on the end of its tails. Like, dudes, what are we doing here? Okay, Nintendo, for the next Zelda, I really feel like you should attach a gun. Just straight up. just a firearm. Like, get an AK-47 and Link get a bulletproof vest. That's the only, it's an item in one of the dungeons. Like, oh, did you go to the water temple? Yeah, I did. Wow. In the water temple, you get the best item ever. It's the bulletproof vest to fight the Lizardfolks in the fire temple. Oh, and if that wasn't weird enough, they had this gigantic stone gauntlet. Okay, I mean, okay, I will say it does look pretty cool. And when you fight these guys, they use the gigantic gauntlet to block Link. You know, in Skyward Sword, you had to do the Wiimote thing. Look, I'm an old school gamer. I don't really like my motion controls, except for gyro. Gyro, I actually really like, and like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But the Wiimote stuff, I don't use that stuff at all. These guys were incredibly hard to map to something, and the reason why is because they have this really bluish tinted skin. And so the closest thing we could find that was in common with this was the blue iguana. But even with that, it does not match well in the face or spikes. You may disagree, and fully let us know below. If you think that this guy is real from the Skyward Sword, you know, let us know. But we couldn't find anything really to match well, and so this one as well is going to have to go in the not real. Our next Lizardfolk goes the complete other direction. Yeah, they removed the weapon that was attached to the tail, but they added fangs and like armor and stuff. Oh, and they made them look like alligators. These guys look pretty cool. I really love the art style of this game. This is from Echoes of Wisdom, but we have a problem here, Nintendo. You see, Nintendo, you went with the alligator look, and well, contrary to popular belief, and this may shock a lot of you, alligators, they're not actually green. Yeah, I know, shocking. But go look it up. Alligators are not normally green. In fact, they're normally black and they have brown skin. So they'll be black and brown and they'll have some specks of green in their skin, but they're not all green. There actually is alligators, I believe, in South Africa that can get algae on them, and then they kind of look very green. However, that algae is clearly not their skin. It does look really cool, though. So unfortunately for this guy, although cool, and I like where they took the direction of this character with the art style of Echoes of Wisdom, it's unfortunately not real. No way. That can't be right. No way. Okay, this is going to get very interesting. Let's talk about the Lizardfolk in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom. This here is the first Lizardfolk that many of you encounter when you're playing the game. Can you guess what reptile this is based off of? Just willy-nilly? I mean, it's very obvious what Nintendo did here. They based the Lizardfolk off of the Jackson's Chameleon, which is an amazing reptile. They have the ability to quite literally change their colors to match the environment around them, which in the game makes them pretty hard to spot sometimes. When I was gathering footage for the canine video that I did, I actually ran into these guys unknowingly because of that stealth mechanic that they have. In the real world, however, chameleons will actually brighten themselves up or darken themselves just to regulate their body temperature a little bit better. Again, reptiles are cold-blooded, so they can't regulate their body temperature. Male chameleons in the real world actually have horns, and also their tails are super cool, and they will actually curl their tails to show as like an aggressive display. And even cooler than that, their tails are actually prehensile tails, meaning they can actually grasp and hold things with their tail. So you don't need Lizardfolk with maces and battle axes anymore. They can straight up just grab a weapon and wield it. They have evolved. Now I'm going to blow your mind. You are going to want to be sitting down for this. Are you ready? Here is the blue Lizardfolk and the Jackson's Chameleon. Here is the black Lizardfolk and the Jackson's Chameleon. Here is the fire breath Lizardfolk. Here is the ice breath Lizardfolk. Electric, silver, stall. Okay, wait. We'll get to you guys in a minute. All right, hold on. Yes, that's right. Here are all the Lizardfolks in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom. Every Lizardfolk in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom can be traced back to the Jackson's Chameleon. Every single one. Except for one, actually. There is one that can't be traced back to the Jackson's Chameleon. That's the golden one. Nintendo, they went too far with this one. They flew too close to the sun. You see, sure, chameleons can change their color. They can match their surroundings, but they can't turn themselves into metal. Okay, I'm kidding. The golden Lizardfolk is not actually metal. That would be really cool, but it's not actually metal. In fact, I couldn't see the golden Lizardfolk shimmering at all. It just looks like it's a flat matte color. But the colors are really wild, where it has a white underbelly and kind of different yellow tones on top. The closest that we could find to the golden Lizardfolk is the Ambilobe Panther Chameleon, which matches the yellow well, but the white is wrong, the eyes are wrong, the strips are more red than yellow here, although there could be ones that match the yellow well. I just haven't seen them on the internet. And even though the chameleon is very good at matching its surroundings, it's unlikely, in our opinion, that a chameleon would be able to match the gold Lizardfolk in the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So that would make every Lizardfolk in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom real, except for the golden Lizardfolk. Oh, it's you again. This here is a stall Lizardfolk, and these enemies can be found in both Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom. And you may be thinking, these things are dead. Of course they're not real. It's undead, right? It's walking around, skeletal. There's no way these things can be real, right? But here's the thing. I want to know, does it have its bones in the right places? Here is a stall Lizardfolk, and here is a Jackson's Chameleon skeleton. And yeah, if you look closely, both of these, they line up really, really well. But look how the tail curls. The tail still curls on both the stall Lizardfolk and the Jackson's Chameleon skeleton. There's a Jack skeleton joke in here somewhere, and I'll be honest, I don't know where it is. What's even crazier is that that skull of the Jackson's Chameleon actually looks really close to the stall Lizardfolk. They did not change anything really between the two, except for the horn. As far as I can tell, the stall Lizardfolk, it's real. Or rather, it was a real reptile at some point. Next up, we have the Arylphos. Look, it's a flying Lizardfolk. These enemies can be found in Twilight Princess as mini bosses. And what's interesting about these guys, well, the Lizardfolk look different than any other Lizardfolk that we looked at thus far. The closest animal that we could find to these dudes is actually the black girdled lizard, which matches well, but yeah, we don't know any reptiles with wings. That would be a dragon, and I know it's not cool to say, but dragons aren't real. They don't exist. At least not that we can prove. There have been mythologies based around dragons in all parts of the world, and there is thought that maybe a dragon at some point existed. I mean, almost all cultures talk about dragons. But until some awesome person finds like actual remains of a real dragon, we cannot say that the Aerolphos is real. So, look, if one of you are watching this, I need you to go out there. I need you to find a real dragon, because it is all banking on whether we can say this guy is real or not, and that would be really good for YouTube. So, get going. Moving back to Skyward Sword, we have the Dark Lizardfolk. Yeah, the Dark Lizardfolk. These Lizardfolk appear as mini bosses in the Fire Sanctuary and eventually become regular enemies. Dark Lizardfolk are basically the regular version of Lizardfolk, except they're beefier, stronger versions of the normal Lizardfolk in that game. And at first, the fin on its head was screaming to us, brown basilisk lizard. These lizards are incredibly cool and can actually run on water, which is magnificent. But then we discovered the Philippine dolphin lizards, which actually can turn purple during the breeding season. Oh my. But here's the thing, the fin is in the wrong location with this guy. And unless the Dark Lizardfolk is constantly in the mood, then I cannot think of anything to say other than that this reptile, it's not a real reptile. Okay, this next one is quite cool, and I actually almost used it as the thumbnail for this video. I'm talking about a boss that is in Triforce Heroes, which, if you're like me, you probably haven't played. Triforce Heroes came out on the 3DS, and you really couldn't play it unless you had friends, which I didn't. I didn't have any friends growing up, right? I'm just kidding. I had friends, I just didn't have any. But the boss I want to talk to you about today is Blizzagia. This Final Fantasy sounding creature is a massive snake that is covered in ice crystals and wears what looks like a rocky mask. You battle this dude in a large pit with 5 cave entrances at its rear. Now here is where things get nuts. With the mask on and its spiky back, Blizzagia looks really, really close to a spiny bush viper. And these dudes can actually be basically almost any color. Now, I couldn't find the perfect color scheme to match what is in the game, but it's likely out there in the real world, because there are versions of this snake that you can find that are purple. Without the mask, however, Blizzagia has like an exposed brain, so maybe the rocky mask is actually a part of Blizzagia. I don't know. I mean, that's up for Nintendo to tell us whether or not that's the case. But we think that this snake is actually a real thing. It's a real reptile. The only thing I can say that's not real about it is the end of its tail. It matches super well with the snake. Just a little off topic here, I want to just disclose for a lot of you is be careful when you look up the spiny bush viper, because you could run into a bunch of Photoshop pictures. When we do our research, we typically only look for photos that are from zoos or from a museum in our research. That's mostly where we pull our photos from. Because unfortunately, there are a lot of folks that have recolored the spiny bush viper something weird, you know, like a rainbow one, in order to get clicks on the internet, on Reddit or something like that, which I will never understand internet popularity. And that is why I'm not popular. Makes sense? Speaking of unpopular, time to talk about the most basic enemies in Zelda: snakes and ropes. Let's do snakes first. Here is the red snake and the blue snake. Now you may be thinking that each one of these snakes is for a different game, Like the blue snake being in the Oracle of Ages, or the red snake being the Oracle of Seasons. But that is incorrect. In fact, the blue snake here is to transfer appraised jewelry between games via the Gameboy link cable. Yeah, how many of you actually have used a Gameboy link cable? If you had, you're one of the cool kids, I'll tell you that. While the red snake actually will get you jewelry using jewelry codes, where you would have to put in a specific password in order to receive the jewelry. This is the way that you're able to transfer jewelry from Oracle of Ages to Oracle of Seasons, or vice versa, which is pretty interesting because in those games, you need jewelry in order to change things about Link, to upgrade them or, make them do something special. It's pretty interesting stuff, and it's really cool to talk about old technology like the Game Boy link cable, which is not really used anymore today. It's equivalent to talking to like a PlayStation memory card. It's like old technology that we don't use anymore. But what kind of snakes are these guys? Well, the blue one looks most like a blue racer snake. At least that's the best we can think of looking at the old school graphics here. And the red one we think is the coach whip or red racer snake. Both of these snakes are incredibly fast, like frighteningly fast. And so it is very easy to say that these two snakes, well, they're real. Okay, now we can actually go on to the ropes. I'm going to be real with you guys. We're going to blaze through these because they all look so similar. For instance, we just talked about the red snake and the blue snake in Oracle of Ages and on Oracle of Seasons. Well, here is a rope in that game which looks super similar to both of those snakes. But we're going to toss this guy with somebody else, which is the Minish Cap rope, which looks only slightly different because it has fangs. This actually looks closer to a green pit viper. Pit vipers are very cool and love hanging out in trees. But interestingly, unlike the sprite here, they don't actually do like the classic cobra stand up. I think they're one for one, the same thing as a pit viper snake. Also, did you know that pit vipers have rows of holes along their face? Those holes are used to detect prey and heat of their prey, which is incredibly cool. I absolutely recommend going and looking up like a pit viper. They're just such cool snakes and also a little scary. Okay, here we have a rope that is from Link's Awakening, A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds, and Triforce Heroes. And each one of these ropes have been modeled after the same snake, and that is the king cobra. This is where you actually see a snake lifting its head off the ground and being able to maneuver itself with the head and keeping its body on the ground straight. The king cobra is the world's longest venomous snake and is among the heaviest, interestingly enough. And this snake, well, it eats other snakes. Yeah, it's known as a cannibal, which they eat them their own kind, which is kind of crazy. And so these ropes are 100% real reptiles. Oh, look, it's a red rope. I think you're starting to get the picture with the ropes. There's literally one in like every single Zelda game. It's the same thing, they just recolor it. However, this one from Four Swords Adventure, we map to the red spitting cobra. They are also cannibals, but like the name suggests, they spit out venom when they are threatened. Man, I don't even know what I would do if I like had venom just spat into my eyes. Luckily, I have glasses. I guess I would run away and try to call for help, get someone to use my phone to call 911, and they're like yelling at me, "What's the password?" And like my password is like the stupid drawing password, but it's like the most complicated ever with like all the dots ever, and I can't see to do it on my phone. I feel like now that I think about it, this is the reason why phones now unlock with our fingerprints. Definitely not because the CIA just wants our fingerprints or China. You know, it's all just in case we ever meet a red spitting cobra and need to call for help. Anyway, huge tangent, but yeah, it's a real reptile. Next up, some of you old school folks like me will remember this one. This is the golden rope from the OG Legend of Zelda. And this one we can actually combine with another rope that is from the Minish Cap, a golden rope over there. But you may be thinking, there are no golden cobras out there, right? Well, here is the Cape Cobra. The Cape Cobra is regarded as one of the most dangerous species of cobra ever. Its venom is extremely potent, so do yourself a favor. If you see a golden cobra or rope, run. You won't be able to butt dial 911 if they bite you. On to Phantom Hourglass. For our next one, we have the purple rope. This one we mapped to the mangrove pit viper, which also equally loves being in trees, just like the last pit viper. But there's a problem with this mapping. You see, there really is not such a thing as purple snakes. I mean, yes, you had the one bush snake, which was very cool, and there's multiple colors, but this one doesn't have spikes. This one is not like that snake at all. People say that the mangrove pit viper kind of looks purplish, but actually that's only in certain lit situations, and most of the time, it just looks all black. So unfortunately for this rope, we're gonna say it's not real. Okay, well, this is awkward. It's unclear whether the skull rope here is a snake that is half undead, or if the rope is wearing a human skull on its head, which I imagine would be really heavy for a snake to have. These skull ropes can be found in both A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. And the best we can really do for this is map it to the green pit viper, which we already talked about earlier. Except, yeah, it has a skull. I don't know what else I can really say about this. If it's half undead, it's not real. If it is alive and it has a skull on it, then I guess it's a pit viper. But I think we're gonna say it's not real simply because it couldn't lift the human skull, and it certainly is not a human half hybrid snake thingy. Look, it's not real. We're putting it under not real.
But is the bones in the right places?
All right, we have finished all the ropes. Congratulations, pat yourselves on the back. Okay, what's next? Get ready for some trauma. Oh boy. Oh man. Next up, I'm talking about the deep python, the enemy that resides only in one Zelda game, the deep python in Majora's Mask. In Majora's Mask, you must collect all the Zora eggs that have gone missing or have been taken away in order to learn a song. That the song is very important because you need the song in order to access the water temple. And the deep pythons show up when you are trying to navigate Pinnacle Rock, where there are, I think, 3 of these Zora eggs that you need to get. And it's absolutely a pain. I mean, you have to, one, go to Pinnacle Rock. By the way, this is after going through the Garuda Fortress, which you have to go through a Garuda Fortress in order to get other Zora eggs. You get to Pinnacle Rock, and then there's literally underwater signs that you have to follow so that you don't get lost in the water or swept away or something. For some reason, the water is so bad there that it's like the Lost Woods. You'll just get swept away. Okay, so you have to deal with that, and that is incredibly annoying. So already you're like, I just had to deal with the Gerudo Pirate Fortress, which if you get caught there, you get thrown out and you have to go back in. That's a whole mess. And then you have to go to Pinnacle Rock, and you go to Pinnacle Rock and you have these signs, and these signs are all funky, and you're going to get like thrown out like the Lost Woods at least once. And then finally you arrive at Pinnacle Rock. And when you finally arrive at Pinnacle Rock, there is this gigantic whole rock thing. I don't even know what I would call it, with all these holes in it. If you ever played Super Mario 64 and you played, you know, the ship level where it's got the eel inside the holes and stuff like that. Yeah, imagine that, except like 5 times as worse. These dudes suck. The only way you can hurt them is by using the Zora's like aura attack ability thing when you swim. And yeah, these things are horrible. And what makes it even worse than all of that is you're doing it on a time limit, and you can't look into the holes that the deep python are in to see if the egg is there. You have to get up close to the deep python in order to see if the egg is there. And let me tell you, I just finished my Majora playthrough. I barely was able to get the amount of eggs in Pinnacle Rock in order to learn the Zora song in the 3-day time limit. I'm not kidding you. I almost didn't make it. And it's not like it was my fault. I didn't try to wait to the last day to do the Zora stuff. I just happened to get there, and I had forgotten to use the song of like slow time. So it was really like a race to the very end, no matter if I had that song or not. And when you finally get them back to the lab, these Zora eggs, they hatch and they turn into notes and stuff like that. But anyway, the deep python is such an annoying enemy. And it probably is one of the most annoying enemies simply because of that whole ordeal. It is not fun to play that part. Now I'm talking about OG Majora's Mask, which OG Majora's Mask may be different than the 3DS version in this regard. I haven't played the 3DS version all the way through yet. But man, this deep python thing and this whole ordeal is just a nightmare. I mean, bro legit gave me trauma. The things Mama Goron puts me through in this video. Okay, but what are the deep pythons in real life? What could we possibly map to these guys? Well, the closest match that we could possibly find is something like a turtle-headed sea snake, but it's not a great match. I mean, if you look at the turtle-headed sea snake, its colors are different. It's just not a good match for the deep python. The colors are all wrong. And I mean, this thing, that's the turtle-headed sea snake, is so tiny compared to the huge thing that you deal with in Majora's Mask. And yeah, so we're gonna overcome our nightmares here together and say that the deep python is not real. And I'm sorry if anybody else needs therapy after this video. Okay, so I actually have a story for this one. After the traumatic story, I have a story that's going to be lighthearted and nice. So the other day, we're researching for the reptiles in Zelda, right? We're doing a ton of research. My wife, she's on the couch. Mama Goron, she's on the couch researching. And I'm over at the bar. I'm researching as well. And I just hear a, woo, this is so cool. And I legit was like, okay. My wife just yelled out in the middle of nothing. Must be something really, really exciting. And she's like, come here. You got to come here right now. Come here. And I was like, okay. Normally she doesn't do that when we're researching. So I come here and she's like, you've got to see this. This might be one of my favorite things that we've ever researched. And I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. When she says something like that, it's like, okay, this is really cool. And she showed me a turtle and I thought, okay, well, yeah, that's just a turtle, babe. I mean, there's nothing super cool about that. But then she's like, no, it's not just a turtle. It's a mama turtle. And Mama Turtle has babies on her back that are stacked. Yeah, we're talking about Mama Turtle from A Link Between Worlds. Mama Turtle lives in the lake with her 3 baby turtles, Gilo, Tylo, and Sabro. I have to agree with Mama Goron here. These guys are incredibly cute. I mean, Mama is literally swimming around with her babies on her back, stacked up, and it's really darn cute. And here's the crazy thing. We said this was real. We mapped Mama Turtle here to a diamond-backed terrapin. The terrapin's body color can be brown, gray, yellow, and white. And it has black spots or markings all along its body, which every single terrapin is completely different. None of them are the same. And I mean, look at this one here. This one right here, it has a mustache because of those markings. Terrapins live in salty water and also exhibit a very unusual but sophisticated behavior. Check this out. You see, the diamondback terrapins actually really like fresh water, but they do a really interesting behavior in order to obtain it. They will go all the way to the surface of the ocean when it is raining. There, they'll raise their heads up into the air with their mouths completely open, and they will catch raindrops falling so then they can get a good drink of fresh water. Sticking with our themes of turtles and moving away from the trauma that was the deep python, we're talking about the giant turtle. Now, this turtle is actually very similarly close to what I just talked about with getting to the water temple in Majora's Mask. You see, once you get the song from the Zora eggs, you go to where the Zora Cove is and you play the song that you're given. When you play that song, a giant turtle comes out of the ocean and greets you. And I'm talking the turtle is massive. It's so big that it literally looked like an island until you played the song. The game says that this creature is very old and actually knows everything about the waters around it. In Zelda lore, the giant turtle spends most of its time dormant and asleep, to the point where there's literally a tree growing out of it. I think 2 even. And upon speaking to the giant turtle, it will take you to the water temple, where it says that it has sensed a big disturbance in the Zora Cove. And if I'm going to be real, it's probably the only thing great about the water temple, because honestly, that is one of the worst temples in all of Zelda. I cannot stand that temple. The giant turtle looks very close to a green sea turtle, and for that, it almost matches it 1 for 1. Green sea turtles are super fascinating because they are huge turtles that can grow around 5 feet long and weigh 400 pounds. That's a big boy. And even cooler than that, like the giant turtle in Majora's Mask, that said, it knows what's going on in the waters around it. The green sea turtle migrates all over the world. And so if one could talk to you, I bet you probably would hear something about what's going on in the ocean everywhere. And so for that, and all of those specificalities, we are going to say that indeed the giant turtle is 100% real.
There is a guardian in the Cave of Flames, high atop Mount Grinnell. It is there you must throw the one ring into...
Wait. Wrong fantasy genre. Lerock is our next would-be reptile, and he can be found in Caves of Flame. Its main attack is to spew fire and hit Link with it. But, man, this one was really hard to map to anything. We ended up going with the California red-sided garter snake. It has a blue belly and a red head, but that's kind of where the similarities end. It doesn't go into lava, obviously. It is not found in some crazy caves. In fact, These actually are found in marshes and in shallow waters and are excellent swimmers. Therefore, the Glee Rock is actually not real. Link's Awakening had 2 alligators in it. It had Sail and Shul, and both live on the imaginary Kulahint Island. Sail lives in a house with bananas, while Shul lives in the animal village. And both of these guys are basically pretending to be alligators because, well, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a blue or red alligator. And I especially haven't seen any wearing hats or trying to trade bananas with me, so then I can get some dog food. But maybe where you live is incredibly fantastical, in which case I envy you greatly because the real world kind of sucks. Unless it has cool animals. Real world does have really cool animals, which is why we're talking about them. Anyway, these alligator guys, they're not real.
Aliens. Aliens. Aliens.
Yeah, next up we're talking about the TOTK from the Oracle of Ages. This is where this video gets a little crazy. These people are, the TOTK are literally lizard people. Like, call up Alex Jones, he was right. There are in fact lizard people in the world. I don't know if they're wearing skin. I'm sorry, I can't say all that seriously. Call them up because they're all up in Oracle of Ages and probably put here by the CIA and look, the TOTK are not real, okay? Seriously though, we mapped these guys to something called a Gila monster, which is very venomous. And certainly they do look a little bit alien. But honestly, the TOTK remind me more of the Lizardfolks from Doctor Who than any sort of reptile. So, Nintendo is very cheeky. Nintendo is very cheeky. Or maybe they're just plain negligent at this point. Because here we are talking about a one-eyed lizard. Look, it's from freshly picked Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land, okay? Anyway, they will attack Tingle. And when they attack Tingle, they actually throw their eye at him. Game's weird, man. I don't know what else to say there. The best that we could do is we can map this to the red-eyed tree frog. And, well, I've never met a lizard with only one eye or a frog with one. And also, frogs are not reptiles, so you know where that's going to go. Oh man, I cannot believe we are actually wrapping up this video with a Tingle game. Mama Goron has a fantastic sense of humor. Okay, but how many reptiles in Zelda are actually real? Like, out of the whole series of Zelda, out of the whole Zelda series, how many reptiles are real? Well, 50% of the reptiles in the Legend of Zelda series are in fact real. I am absolutely astounded and amazed by this number. Once again, Nintendo actually pulled from real life inspiration here for a good amount of their animals. This is the 3rd video in our series, and each one just keeps coming out and has got a pretty dang good number of real animals. I'm kind of waiting for one, which may be coming up here shortly, that has a terrible number of real like animals. The games that were included in this research was The Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages, Twilight Princess, Minish Cap, Four Swords Adventure, Phantom Hourglass, Freshly picked Tingle's Rosy Ruby Land. A Link Between Worlds. Triforce Heroes. Skyward Sword. Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom, and Echoes of Wisdom. I want to thank Mama Goron once again for such fantastic research. She does such a wonderful job. She's a well-published doctor in animal behavior and in ornithology. She spent the last 2 weeks coming up with all of these reptiles for us to go over today and find out exactly how many there were in Zelda that were real. And I have to say, the ones that she pulled out and mapped are just absolutely amazing. And some of the facts that she pulled out, there are things that we have in this video that I hope when you guys see it, you just are almost too hard to believe, and just amazing facts. She is incredible. She is absolutely incredible. So if you liked any of the research that is in this video, please give it a like to let her know that you really appreciate the research and that you learned something. And put down in the comments below, let us know which one surprised you the most. Mine was definitely the sticky lizard. I mean, I can't say it's a real reptile, but knowing it's actually real is mind-boggling. Like, it does not look like it should be real, but it is, and it has existed, and it was a precursor to the nude salamander. It is absolutely just incredible. I am pretty sure when we get to a certain point with these videos, we're going to do a compilation of probably all the animals in either the Breath of the Wild game or Tears of the Kingdom or both. And we're going to do a video on that. And we'll probably, we're definitely going to bring up this sticky lizard and Diplodocus because it is just so darn cool. And there's other things that I want to bring up as well that we talked about that we couldn't say it was a real whatever, but that, you know, we could say, hey, yeah, it's a real animal. Anyway, guys, my name is Papa Goron. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all on the next one. Bye. Oh, and by the way, we are working on the Fish of Zelda next. It will take a long time to do. It's a lot of research as far as we can tell. Like, it's going to be over a month of research. But if you made it this far in the video, you definitely need to check that out when it comes out, because it is going to have an astronomically huge amount of fish and real fish and lots of silly jokes. It's going to be great because it is going to be even bigger than our bird video. Our bird video was huge, and it's like almost double that. No joke. So, hey, stay tuned until then and keep on swimming. You get it? Because this fish video and swimming.